Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast of uncommon conversations about love. I'm your host, Francesca Hoagie. Today, I have a really great conversation about grief and grieving and loss and love and dating and passion and coaching and self-love and so many things with my friend Jonathon Aslay. Jonathon is known as America's leading midlife dating and relationship coach. Jonathon says that he is a defender and protector of women's hearts around the world, and I believe it. He's a great guy. He helps women transform from attracting Mr. Wrong into finding their Mr. Right. He is also the author of the Amazon bestseller, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? Jonathon is great. He came over to my house to record and he didn't know that we were rolling. So you'll notice at the beginning of this conversation, there's no real start because we're just sort of in the middle of a combo. So just so you know what's going on, enjoy my conversation with Jonathon.
You have great energy. From the moment I met you, I'm like, God, I was telling a friend of mine this before I drove out here. I'm like, you've just got great energy. I mean, your soul is so like robustly energetic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathon. Wow. Oh, that makes my day. Thank you. Well, you also have great energy. And if you didn't, then I wouldn't have asked you to be on my podcast.
Well, thank you.
And I certainly wouldn't have invited you to my house.
Well, I appreciate because that's an intimate thing. So, no, but there's some people, I said when I met Thomas and you, and there were a few others in the room, not everybody, but the two of you really stood out to me. It's more about your spirit because a lot of people are wrapped up in their personality and your spirit shines. I mean, obviously his does because I just said it, but I've just always felt really comfortable interacting with you. You just have that pleasantness about you that makes people feel warm and safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That is a wonderful compliment.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about love and dating and self-love with you today.
Okay.
And you brought a copy of your book, which I'm excited about. And actually, so I was looking at your website, and of course, I'm going to link to this in the show notes and everything, so everyone can check it out. But I noticed that the first chapter, speak your truth, do it with kindness.
Yes.
Okay. And then your second chapter, stop fucking complaining.
Yeah.
So tell me why Stop Fucking Complaining is in a book about self-love.
So, thank you so much. This particular book is an opportunity to explore one's own love for themselves. And so I liken it to when you put the oxygen mask on yourself on the airplane kind of thing, when the flight attendant discusses that. So I create a variety of different chapters to look inside oneself, to love oneself. In the chapter, stop, and it's exclamation points in the book.
Censored in the book.
Yes.
This podcast is not censored.
Okay, good. So stop fucking complaining, or stop freaking complaining, or whatever you want to say, is really distinguishing the difference between healthy venting versus when it becomes a negative in one's life. So the idea is to go, it's okay to vent because venting means something stored up inside of you that needs to come out. Oftentimes people do the same thing, but they do it in the form of victim consciousness. They're doing it from like, poor me, what's wrong with me kind of thing, which is also looking at oneself from a level of shame versus going, hey, I just need to get this out and I need to just vent about something. And just so, in fact, even within my circle of friends, I'll just say, hey, I've got to vent something. I don't want you to comment. I don't want you to analyze. I just need to get it out. And if we want to, unpack it a little bit, that's fine. But let's just get it out. And that's what this chapter is all about, because it's important to get out those things inside of that's the dark side, or maybe it might be a judgment about someone that you really don't want to say out loud, but you just need to get it out.
Yeah. So speaking of venting, this is a very good segue to social media.
Okay, great.
And you share a lot on social media. You share a lot on Facebook, and you share a lot both in your role as a dating coach, a love coach, and you also in your role as a man who is single and looking for love right now, right? You get a lot of... Well, first of all, you get a huge amount of engagement. So people are definitely paying attention to what you're saying and the kind of question that you're asking. But I know you just posted something the other day that got you in a little bit of trouble. So
Do you want me to go into the details?
And also just a process, like why do you share so much personally on Facebook?
Yeah, so I want to answer that first, and I'll go into the specific of what's happened. So I've recognized that as a human being, I have multiple different thoughts, and we can say that different parts of who we are. Some people it's just the inner roommate in your head, and in my case it's the whole fraternity. There's 50 people, and so I express different facets of my personality, different facets of what I feel. Now, to the outside world, it probably looks like I'm schizophrenic. I mean, I'm like the person that has 16 different personalities, and it probably makes it very confusing for some people. In fact, one person recently wrote me privately saying, I think you need professional help.
Oh.
Yeah, which is piggybacking on this post that I did. So I did a post exploring the idea about drinking and dating. And isn't it interesting that dating apps ask you, like, this? Almost every dating app asks the same 12 questions. What's your height? What's your body type? Do you smoke? Do you drink? What's your religious preferences and so forth? And there's no accident those questions are there, because they're oftentimes deal breaker questions. So I happen to be a person that occasionally drinks. I like a glass of wine. I like to do wine tasting things. And I said, and this is my exact words, I said, why does a non-drinker feel like a deal breaker for me? What's wrong with wanting to share a glass of wine with your partner? Now, I said feel like a deal breaker. I didn't say is a deal breaker. And I want to just say this because I'm just exploring the idea. So I got 3 different types of responses. I had the camp of people.
And you got like hundreds of people responding.
I had 200 or 300 comments, and it was one of those where it started to take a life of its own. The people that kind of could resonate with what I was feeling, they're like, yeah, I totally get it, blah, 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 and for whatever reason. And so they were not validating me, but they were just acknowledging that they feel the same way. Then there was another camp of people go, hey, would you really want to miss out on your soulmate if they weren't a non-drinker? And they're bringing that to my attention, along with other reasons why, and they were addressing the post itself. Mm-hmm. Then there was this third camp of people who chose to attack my character, and I mean viciously attack my character as if I'm shallow, there's something wrong with me, boy, you're judging, blah, blah, blah. And they don't even, I felt as though most of the people that did that were probably the non-drinkers that felt that they were being judged. Where my post was just all about me, had nothing to do with you, but you took it So what was interesting about this post is it helped me see why I've been doing what I've been doing on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Facebook has been my laboratory for my own personal growth, my own self-help, my spirituality. Because the old Jonathon, when being attacked, would immediately defend. I would then passive-aggressively try to trump what they were saying. Yeah. And I say passive-aggressively, in other words, well, I probably do it aggressively, but do it, but in a passive-aggressive kind of move. In other words, it's, making it about them in such a way.
You're doing it in a way that you can kind of say, no, look, I'm not attacking you. Look, you're wording in a way that you have an immediate defense when they feel attacked, because you are kind of attacking them. Yeah. You can do it in a way that they don't feel.
Well, when I respond back, and that's the way I would have responded in the past, and because of the work I've done in the area of self-love, and what self-love means, self-worth, self-confidence, self-reliance, self-esteem, all those things about a healthy you, that sovereign part of you. Okay, I'm going to be honest for your listeners. I reacted I want to say I reacted for a second. I'd like to say nanosecond, but it was a second. A second of me was like, fuck you, and want to attack, because who likes to feel attacked?
Yeah.
But I recognize their attack is really a reflection of something going on inside of them.
Oh, it always is. I mean, everything is about us. I mean, it's, I talk about this when I talk about rejection, because I have this motto about rejection, which is rejection isn't real. Yeah. Because for you, I mean, it's an emotion. So your emotions, like to feel rejected, like to feel like maybe this is a deal breaker for me, that's a totally valid feeling. Your feelings are valid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But your feelings aren't necessarily true either, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Your feelings aren't facts. Rejection, specifically is so unproductive to me, because that's you just making a decision to tell yourself a story about someone else and what's going on with them when they're the hero of their story. Like they got their whole own thing going on. Yeah. So like, why make it about you? Because ultimately everything is about us.
Yeah.
Like it's when you're interacting with another person, it's about the other person for them, and about, so it's I get what you're saying.
Well, what's interesting is that I've found over the years for myself that I have had this propensity of wanting to be liked And I went out of my way of wanting people to like me, even the people that didn't like me. I even had to try harder with them. Now, when I looked, and one of the chapters in my book talks about childhood wounds and the importance of healing childhood wounds. And so my childhood wound was I was bullied as a kid. And I used to go out of my way to try to make the bully like me. So when someone attacks me, I would want to, in the past, want to go out of my way to make them like me. What I recognize now that all these years, my Facebook posts, and there's anytime you do something of controversy, it's going to stir up people's stuff, is that it's always been an opportunity to love myself and to be loving to the other person. In fact, I was just thinking right before I came over here to do this podcast with you was people that are mean to you are the people that are suffering the most. Those are the people that need the most amount of love. And yet we vilify mean people, we punish mean people, and yet those are the people that need the most love.
Yeah, I know.
So that's why my posts, it's interesting. It's a laboratory. It's a fascinating laboratory into human behavior, human conditioning.
Totally.
And an opportunity to be loving for oneself and to others.
Yeah. So do you think through this process, do you attribute social media and your interactions with social media, is it working? Has it deepened your sense of self-love, and it's helping?
Yeah, a lot of people knock social media, but really, and I totally recognize that for me, my world is I work from home. If there was no social media, I would barely have interaction with people other than, socializing with friends and so forth. So social media happens to be kind of my water cooler, if you will, but it's become my laboratory to heal myself. I didn't realize this until just recently. Actually, it was this post. I knew this before, but this post really amplified this awareness that I'm on social media for the benefit of healing myself.
Yeah.
Because where else can I go and get attacked all the time? All that attack is an opportunity to love myself.
Yeah.
And so now, do I need it as much anymore now that I've had this awareness? Probably, because there's more layers to removing the blocks that cause that angst within me, that need to be liked. There's definitely more work to do. I think it's an endless journey.
Yeah, I think for everyone. There's no finish line with loving yourself and personal development and growth. There's no finish line.
It keeps going even after you pass on. So, and I mean, I'm blessed.
What do you mean by that?
So this book was inspired after the loss of my 19-year-old son. My 19-year-old son passed away 14 months ago. And it was actually... I didn't
realize it was so recent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it feels like yesterday. So, but it is relatively...
very recent.
Yeah. So it was this week, a year ago, that I began writing this book. I was inspired by him because actually one of the chapters in the book is called Don't Let Anyone Fuck With Your Chi. And my son, my 19-year-old son, had this interesting ability that people could not, kind of criticize him. And he had this way of like Teflon. It just literally bounced off of him. He didn't let people bother his space of happiness. He found his own zone of happiness. And so he's throughout the book. And I'm going to answer that question about the afterlife because he's been inspiring me ever since he left. His inspiration is finding his way to me in a variety of different ways. Interesting enough, his nickname is Salty. And so when I posted that a year and a half, 14 months ago on Facebook, ever since then, I get emails from people constantly. It might be an instant message. It might be a post on Facebook. It could be a text message that they saw the word salty somewhere. Salty crew, salty life, salty this, salty that. So in a way, I feel as though that's him talking to me saying, hey, Dad, just want to let you know I'm okay. Because people are constantly doing this. And I'm talking, it happens minimum of 2 to 4 times a week. I get some message from someone.
Yeah.
And that's a message from him.
It is a message from him. Yeah, I believe that. Well, that's the thing about love. It's when you love someone, that love does not go away.
Yeah.
This does not go away. And, I lost my dad. I lost my brother. And I've lost some other people too. And I feel almost closer to them in a way because I don't know. I mean, I've had experience. Every person that I've loved who's died has come to me in a dream and we've talked it out. And because I remember first when my dad died, I spent a year, I cried myself to sleep every night for a year. And then every night I dreamt that he was alive. And in my dream, I'd be like, oh my God, I thought you were dead. And I'd be so relieved. And then I'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh, fuck. And it was just this cycle. It was exhausting. It was horrible. It was a really bad year. And then finally, the thing that changed it was one night the dream changed. and my dad was there, but I knew he was gone. You know?
Okay.
It was like, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, you're gone. And my dad really liked jazz music and he really liked to dance. And so in my dream, we were listening to jazz music and we're dancing and he's like spinning me around. And I just felt this overwhelming sense of like, oh, it's going to be okay. Like, he's not physically here, but like, he's always going to be here. And like, I don't know, it was so joyful. And so literally in the dream, he's spinning me around and I'm laughing and I wake myself up laughing.
Oh.
And it was like, oh my God, everything is going to be okay. And after that, I never had that dream again that he was, I dreamt about him many times.
Okay, got it.
But I never had a sad dream about him again. I never had a dream where I was like, you know, where I had that feeling when I woke up of like, oh no, he's gone. And like, it's always been joyful ever since then. And everyone I've lost, I've had a dream like that, where they come to me and we like, sometimes we have a conversation.
Yeah. It sounds like he was wanting to give you this message. I mean, that sounds like he wanted to give you a message. You know, it's interesting. About 5 months ago, I was staying at a friend's house and it was right at that twilight, you know, like 4 or 5 in the morning, you know, right when you're kind of in and out of sleep sometimes. Yeah. And I had this clear message from my son, said, I'm ready to talk to you. Like, that was all he said. And I was like, fuck. Wow. I was getting messages from him in a different way, and then literally 1 month to the day later, I was experiencing this kind of interesting dream, if you will. I was kind of half awake, half asleep. And I was opening and closing my eyes. And he popped in and he said, Dad, when you open and close your eyes, you're kind of opening the portal to the other world. And it happened to be when my eyes were open, it was bright and very light, you know, in this moment. And he's like, that's where I'm at. When you go over to the other side, it's all light, it's all love. And he says, so you don't need to open and close your eyes. He said, all you do is just keep your eyes open to love. And I thought, wow, what a message. And then he said something else. He said, don't be worried about death. He said, be grateful for death, because that's us transitioning to love 100% of the time. And so he said, when you hear about a mass shooting or this or that, of course there's a sadness, but also step into gratitude, because it's almost like, I kind of was thinking about that line from the movie It's a Wonderful Life. When you hear a bell ring, it's an angel getting their wings. When someone passes, it's their transition to just absolute love. And so he said, you don't have to feel sad for me. And that changed everything.
That's amazing. Oh, such a gift.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the message was love.
No,
so isn't it kind of, he was like screaming. Okay, that's why this book and why this conversation is so important, to talk about love, because look at what was happening in that Facebook post was a lot of judgment for me. And it's interesting how a population like the United States keeps talking about how the government needs to be more compassionate. No, individuals need to be more compassionate every single day, because when we judge, you know, it's an aggression to another person. And, you know, when you do it enough times, we're devoid of what's really who we are on the inside, which is love.
Yeah. So anyone who has been listening to this podcast regularly probably knows what I'm going to say right now, because I talk about this all the time. And if any of my clients are listening, they 100% know what I'm going to say. Okay. Because
now I'm dying to know. What are you going to say?
So I'm also always, you know, talking about self-love and really beating this drum of self-love and how important it is. But I broken self-love down into these 5 different elements. And the first one is self-compassion. Okay. And it is so hard for people to be compassionate towards themselves. It is so hard for people to not judge themselves, not criticize, not to just give themselves a break. Like, it's not only it's a barrier to loving yourself, to, you know, to be just uncompassionate towards yourself. Or just, I don't know what the word is. But it's also, it's a complete barrier to loving other people.
Yes.
Like, it's a complete barrier. So I'm always like, you know, I do these self-love check-ins with my clients. I'm like, let's do a self-love check-in. We start with self-compassion. Always. It's always the starting point. It's a reminder. And I have to do it to myself too. I have to like, oh wait, I'm beating myself up right now. I'm saying, shit, why did I do that? Or da-da-da. Or how did I get myself in this situation? Or why? Or all of these things. And I'm like, wait, I have to stop, because the only way that I can move forward is if I give myself a break.
Yep.
And that's the hardest thing, but that's why people are so judgmental. That's why people are so judgmental towards other people. It's really hard to be compassionate towards other people if you truly compassionate towards other people, if you can't have some compassion for yourself as well.
That's an interesting point of view, because you're right. The person who is really compassionate for themselves rarely is judgmental of others. They're already starting from a place of love right there. And so I suspect it's a matter of degrees. You know, I mean, I don't know if I can love myself fully 100%. I mean, I'd like to aspire to that, but I know there are days where I'm like, I'm not loving myself.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to be self-compassionate in those moments.
A huge reminder because, you know, love, and you know this, like love is a feeling, it's an emotion, but it's also a verb, right? And so you have to train yourself. If you want to love yourself, you have to train yourself to treat yourself with love, even when you're not feeling it.
Yeah. Do you think love is a choice?
Yes, I do think that love is a choice.
Because a lot of people don't believe that. They think it's automatic. You know, when you love someone, it's like, you know.
I think that you can, even the people who you love the most in the world, you don't at every moment feel incredibly loving towards them in every moment. You're not always like overcome with this emotion of love, especially like in romantic relationships when you're triggered, when somebody does this or that, or, you know. And so it is a choice to continue to treat someone with love rather than just rely. If you're just relying on the feeling, like, oh, I'll be nice to you, I'll be kind to you, I'll be loving towards you when I feel like it. That's selfishness. That's not love. That's like,
yes, exactly. That's
not,
selfishness.
Yeah, that's not love. And I think that's why a lot of relationships end, because when it gets too deep and it starts to get hard, and then you're no longer having like that just really sunny, easy feeling all the time of being in love, then it's like, oh, now I have to choose to be compassionate and empathetic towards this person. And
I don't like you right now.
That. Like,
well, you know, what's interesting is because a lot of people that have said to me, you know, especially when a relationship ends, I love this person, you know, as if that's not a choice. In other words, I love this person and this hurts a lot. What they're oftentimes really experiencing is attachment and not actual love. And so I think the vast majority of people believe attachment is love. And I think that's something for many people to explore within themselves.
Yeah.
When they feel attached to someone and calling that love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, it's hard. If somebody tells me I love someone, I don't feel that it's my place to say that you don't love them. Like, I'm like, if you say you love them, you love them. I mean, love it. That's what I mean. It's like love it is a feeling, right? It is an emotion. That's one component of love, but it's also a verb. And so there's also the action of love. And it's particularly when you're talking about when you're in a relationship with someone and you're in a relationship with yourself, which you are.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Right? Treating ourselves with love, even when we're like, oh my God, I'm so dumb, or I'm so this, or I'm so that, or all those negative thoughts that we can think about ourselves, like that's huge. And if you treat yourself with enough love consistently enough, like your feelings will catch up, right? So like when you talk about, so I said, you know, there are 5 elements.
Yeah, I want to know the other 4.
Okay. So the first is self-compassion. Okay. The second is self-worth.
Okay.
Right? And that's a huge one, obviously. Yeah. Then self-validation, self-care, and self-gratitude. Okay. So that's how I break it down, and I could go further into that if you want. I also just did actually a podcast episode about this, so those of you who are listening who want to go deeper, just listen to the last episode. But with self-worth, because this is, I think, self-compassion, once you kind of talk somebody through it, they can kind of like accept, like, okay, I guess if I want to move forward, I need to give myself a break. I need to like let go of the judgment. Yeah. And they can kind of do that in a moment, like, okay, fine. All right, I'm going to give myself a break. I did the best that I could. Everyone's deserving of compassion, myself included. Yep. But then the self-worth question, the worthiness question, I mean, this is the big one, right? And we can really get stuck on that. So, you know, I call the question of, do I truly believe that I'm worthy of love, respect, any of our heart-centered desires? Mm-hmm. So I'm not talking about ego-driven desires, but like the universal heart-centered desires that we all have. So when you ask yourself, do I truly believe I'm worthy of that? It's not a brain question, it's a heart question. So you have to like sit with it and see what comes up. And sometimes something comes up other than hell yes, right? Sometimes something comes up like, yeah, I hope so, maybe, I don't know, or just an outright no. But the thing but that's okay, because that's part of being human. Yeah. But you can start to ask yourself, okay, well, if I did believe that I was worthy, then what would I do right now? What choice would I make? What action would I take? And if you commit to taking that action of treating yourself with love, with loving yourself by behaving as if though you're worthy, like if you do that enough, one day you'll wake up and it's automatic.
Exactly.
And then you're like, yeah, I'm worthy. free, right?
It's all little
life-changing.
building blocks.
Yeah.
And all of these things that we're talking about are the little deposits of love into your own bank account, if you will. And the more you build up, you're going to slip off of it. You know, there's going to be times where you might crucify yourself and you might beat yourself up, or someone might attack you, and that might set you off. But if you build up enough deposits of love within yourself, you can handle anything.
Yeah.
And why I share this is because when my son passed, and the balance of the book is about the idea of the investment in oneself for personal development, self-help, and spirituality. Because I was able to navigate this experience a lot different than I expected to, because I spent 19 years and 22 with my other son worrying that something would happen to him. I think any parent listening, your greatest fear, your greatest nightmare is something happening to your child. And the idea was I would never recover from this. I had not dreams, but fear built up for so long that I couldn't recover from this. And many people lose a child and they never recover.
Yeah.
I was able to handle or navigate this. I don't want to say handle, but navigate this with a relative amount of, I'm going to use the word ease only in comparison to the way I thought it would be. In that comparison, I thought my life would end. Yeah, my life was over. I might as well just stick my head in the toilet and be done with myself, kind of thing. But that was further from my reality, and it's because I spent so much time investing in myself prior to that. Now, if I go far enough back, and I talk about this in the book, in 2006, I experienced, or 2005, I went through a divorce, lost my $250,000 a year job, and then a few years later lost all my money in the market. And I was in hell at that moment in time. And I didn't have a personal development, self-help, spiritual practice as a foundation, because that foundation is really all the same thing. It's self-love.
Yeah.
You know, I call it, whether we call it personal development, self-help, spirituality, it's all about learning how to love yourself and others.
Yeah.
It's not singular to oneself, because some people hear self-love and they think it's narcissism. No, It's just putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then also putting it on the person next to you that you love, or the people around you. So that is my invitation for people. And there's a variety of ways to get there. And you use self-compassion, self-worth, self-validation, self-care, and self-gratitude.
Good job.
That was stuff. It's interesting because I love that, because I didn't touch upon my book in that way. I mean, it has its own elements of it, but that's it. For those listening, Francesca has a great 5-step model. So follow that, because it's really important. Everyone listening to this, please invest in yourself. You know, the reason why we do coaching is not, you know, we're passionate about this, but our passion is for the individual to really choose to invest in yourself.
Yes.
A lot. I mean, invest a fortune on yourself. And I know that sounds like, I'm not saying in coaching per se, but spend more money on working within versus and I'm going to be judgmental here, the shoes or, the fancy car, this and that. And I get that those are nice things.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
but it's not what's going to fill you up.
Yeah, and if you're not feeling filled up, take a break from the shoes or the this or that and put it in yourself. Totally. Invest a ton in yourself. Because
invest time, invest energy, invest effort. It doesn't even, I know like my personal development.
Yeah, it wasn't money. I meant all those things.
Yeah, all of those things. But money too. Listen, I have a coach. I've worked with, I think I'm on my 4th or 5th coach at this point. I'll always have a coach. Yeah. I'll always, why would I not have a coach?
And we call them mentors. We call them wise elders. There's a variety of different people.
I have mentors and I have coaches and it's all, for me, love was really like the main pain point that I had. And so that was my entryway to personal development, because I was like trying to make this love thing happen.
Now, when you say love, do you mean romantic love? Okay, I just want to be clear. You're clear.
Yeah. You're right. It's a good point. It was romantic love, and that was such a pain point for me. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. And I kept on just trying to do everything except love myself. Everything was like so outwardly focused. It was like, what are the tactics, and how do I do this, and how do I get a guy to like me, and how do I do and it was like, and how do I date, and how do I flirt, and everything was so outwardly focused. And eventually I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I think there's patterns here that are happening, and I'm feeling a way that's not how I want to feel, and I think I gotta just like fix myself before I can, and so that was my real entryway into personal development. And so I'm grateful that it was such a pain point for me, because that was what forced me to do, to go deeper.
Relationships, interesting enough, because not that my story is similar, but it was through the exploration of a relationship, the idea of finding my soulmate, if you will. I identified my codependency, and in that identified how much I didn't love myself. It was through that portal of relationships, the idea of wanting someone in my life, that took me down the path of a self-love path. I think, keep in mind, it's not just romantic relationship, it's a relationship with people you might work with, or friends, or family. Family is actually the greatest dynamic to practice self-love. I don't think we should talk about that.
It's a whole other conversation.
And I'm very much like you. It was that, and I want to share with your audience, after my divorce, I went out on over 100 internet dates in the first year. And it was like the same story. Met a nice girl, woman, excuse me. Nice woman, well, because a guy and a girl just seem to go together. So nice woman, we have a great time, but something wasn't right. Meet another nice woman, have a good time, wasn't right. And in a year I realized, hey, that something right wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
That was when I figured it out. It took me, but it took me 100 these, and by the way, for people that can't see, I'm smacking myself up on side the head. I needed 100 smacks upside my head to go, wait a minute, you're the common denominator here.
That's exactly what happened to me. I was like, I spent so many years being like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? But it was from this place of real insecurity. So then I thought like, oh, I can like date myself out of insecurity. Because if I can just figure out how to connect with guys and guys like me, then I'll be fine. And then I was like that. So then I got good at doing that thing. But then I was like, but I'm still not fine. Right? And then I was like, oh, I got to figure this thing out. I think that is a real life-changing moment for people who are looking for love, romantic love, when they realize, oh, if this is something I'm struggling with, and especially there's a pattern that's repeating, it's like, okay, the only answer is to go deeper and to figure out how I'm not loving myself. Because when you really love yourself, all this other shit really, really starts to work itself out.
Here's the thing though, I was just thinking of this, and I hope we have enough time, is that the ego is insidious. The ego blocks this and makes up a lot of great stories that think you might be loving yourself, that makes you think that you're loving to other people. And yet what's really happening is, and I'm offering this for anyone to notice, whenever you get triggered, and I'm doing the finger quotes in the air, and trigger is merely the experience of going, something doesn't feel right. That's all it is. Something doesn't feel right. In that moment when something doesn't feel right, let that be your barometer in that moment to go inward instead of outward. Because oftentimes most people, the ego wants to make it about everyone else. The ego wants to blame everyone but self.
Amen.
And that, it's like when you I'm pointing a finger at Francesca right now, and there's 3 fingers pointing back. That's what happens when something doesn't feel right. It's an opportunity to look within. So when that post happened, and I'm getting attacked, of course I wanted to initially blame. I go, wow, what's really coming up for me? And so the invitation is to notice. Just start noticing that when you don't feel right about something, and look inward. Because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and in that movie there's the concept of the Force, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says to Luke Skywalker, feel your feelings to feel the Force. That's how you feel the Force. And the Force is this universal energy that we can all tap into. And this universal energy is love. It really does exist. It requires tapping into it.
Absolutely. I think people are so scared of uncomfortable emotions that they will just do anything to avoid them. And
yes.
I had this conversation recently with a client, and she was like, well, I'm just really nervous, and it's about this guy that she's met, and she's like, I'm just so nervous. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, what's wrong with being nervous? Why is that bad? And she's like, oh, I guess it's not. She was actually specifically nervous about a date that was coming. Okay. So it wasn't like she was nervous, like, I think he might not be a good person. It was like, it was something, that was like, so why is that bad? nervousness and excitement are two sides of the same coin. You could just decide that you're excited to see him again, And she's like, oh, okay. And it's just like, just that little shift, then she was fine,
Yeah.
But it's like, we're so like, I'm not going to tell this whole story on air. I'll tell you if you want to.
Okay.
Because it's just like a long story. It's a whole, it's kind of a big segue. But I recently was talking to a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, and she was talking about this new opportunity that she was embarking on. And I'm so happy for her. And it's nothing that I want. Mm-hmm. It's not like an envy thing of I wish I had that opportunity. I don't want that. It's nothing, totally different field, totally different life circumstances. It's nothing to do with me, right?
Okay.
But it was weird because I got this weird flutter feeling in my chest, and it was like this uncomfortable feeling that I get that's been with me for a long time. And at first I was like, because I was so busy kind of just being like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you, that I was like, what's that feeling? I had a moment where I was going to ignore it, and then I stopped myself and I was like, wait, why am I feeling this right now?
Yeah.
That's really weird. Yeah. I need to think about this, right? What's going on? And I was like, don't try to ignore the uncomfortable emotion, right?
Yeah.
And then I wound up doing a whole meditation about it, and I had this huge breakthrough, and it was amazing. I saw my ancestors. It was crazy. It was crazy. But anyway, it was a very woo-woo experience. Yeah. But I think that if people can feel sadness, if they can feel pain, if they can feel anger, they can feel fear, and they can learn to cope with those emotions. I mean, it's sort of like what you were talking about with your son. And, there was a time where that your life would have been over because you weren't able to deal with these deeper, scary, fearful parts of ourselves, and developing the tools. That's why you were able to grieve, but grieve in a way that your life wasn't over.
I say thank you so much. And I say that self-love is a vaccination to chaos. In other words, it's what, when, and look,
that's a great line, by the way.
Thank you. I'm not saying here it's an absolute. I mean, I'm not even remotely here to say I totally love myself to this point, but I recognize that the more I invest in my own self-love and others, and I keep wanting to say and others, so it's not exclusive to self, is the better I seem to be able to navigate life.
Yeah.
The better, and I say better, I mean, that sounds like a comparison, but little, things don't bother me as much. I'm not affected by them, and I'm actually becoming a role model to others because of this experience. So,
which is powerful.
Yeah, and going back to what you shared with your story, I was just thinking about, this is an opportunity to tap into something that's very powerful, and that's our intuition. Because that's what Obi-Wan was saying. We actually have this power within us.
We really do.
And our feelings are our guide to this power. And it's not so much about having to analyze it, because, we can misinterpret our feelings. It's more just being aware and noticing and allowing it to happen. So going back to the loss of my son, speaking of feelings, there are days where I get melancholy.
Yeah.
And I allow the feeling to come in, but I allow the feeling to go out just like it came in. In other words, I'm aware now that I don't have to attach to the feeling. I don't have to make sense of it and try to come up with a story around it. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling sad. It's related to him. Okay. I let it come in. Yeah. And I might cry for a little bit. Yeah. I mean, and I get triggered on a variety of, I saw a young boy on a bicycle and that triggered it. It could be as simple as that. But it's also letting the feeling go out.
Yeah.
Because many feel as though those feelings are absolute. And as you said earlier, feelings, wait, how did you say it?
Your feelings are valid, but your feelings aren't facts.
Yeah, exactly. Feelings aren't facts. I know that. But, and then that's the point, so, and this is all part of the journey of self-love. And I love that you've come up with these 5, ways to look at it.
Thank you.
And I really hope that everyone just invests in their own self-love, because I like the English term about sovereignty. When a person becomes as full as they can possibly be within themselves to love themselves, all the dating stuff becomes really easy.
Yes.
It's like effortless.
This is what I mean, from your lips to God's ears, and every single person who I'm always like, I'm telling you, because I'm like, well, let's just talk about some self-love. And they're like, I don't want to talk about self-love. I want to talk about where the guy is.
Tell me what 5 text messages I need to send the guy to get him crawling at my house, and not just a booty call.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work that way, but
exactly.
Yeah, I think, I like what you said about, it's all these little deposits, that build up over time. And it reminds me of, Brene Brown in Daring Greatly, she talks about this with trust.
Yes.
And trust is like a jar. It's like a coin jar. And every little act of trust, you build and you build and you build. And then sometimes that trust might be violated, or you might feel hurt or something by someone, but you look and see, you're like, okay, if my jar is this full, rather than now all trust is gone, all love is gone. It's like, well, maybe it was like a little thing, and it's just a little withdrawal.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just happened to be the stock market crash.
I'm totally misquoting her. So anybody, if Brene Brown is listening to this, she's not. But if she,
I'm sure you're listening to this right now at some point in your life. It could be 25 years.
Everybody read Daring Greatly. It's a great book, and she'll explain this much better than I do. It's kind of that same way with yourself. It's like if you're kind of constantly filling up your love tank, your self-love tank, but you're going to have moments where you don't feel so great. You're going to have moments where you do something and you're just like, fuck, why did I do that? You're going to have those moments if you have enough of those deposits of acknowledging all the things that you have done well, and finding ways to celebrate yourself, and finding ways to care for yourself, and all these things. And it's like, it's not such a big hit. You can bounce back from it a lot more easily.
And this is not, here's the thing for everyone listening. A lot of people think this is woo-woo shit. This isn't. This is really the most important thing you can ever do in your life. I mean, this is the singular, people might think it might be being a parent or buying a home or having a job. No, the singularly most important thing, and I know this is my perception, so take it for what it's worth, is to love on yourself. It starts there. Everything else is going to be easy when this is the foundation that you're working from.
I agree. And self-love is not buying yourself nice things.
No, God.
I mean, it's wonderful to buy yourself nice things, but sometimes it's the opposite of loving towards yourself, because there are people who they're buying things, they're spending money on things to try to fill themselves up, and it's not going to work. It's a bottomless pit of doing that. So if you're buying yourself those shoes because you're like, this is going to make me feel worthy, then it's like, that's...
Well, I also say it's the same while it's great to go get the manicures and do all those things, be careful not to place the importance of that, because you talked about self-care, which I think is hugely important. One of the chapters in my book is called Your Body is a Machine, Not a Temple. And what it means is your body, treat your body like a machine because you want it to last for as long as you can. That's part of self-care. So manicures and spas and things like that are all great.
That's
but
self-care
it's just
industry. That's not real self-care.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I wanted to point that out, because a lot of people put so much weight into that that the most weight one can put on is within their head and their heart.
Totally.
And I like the way, and I'm going to butcher, Marianne Williamson's quote, is our greatest fear is ourselves.
Yeah.
It's really our greatest fear is loving on ourselves.
It's our greatest fear is how powerful we are.
Yeah, exactly. And what I mean by saying, because we are love, our greatest fear. And so what she talks about in her book, Return to Love, is remove another great book.
Everyone should read it.
Daring Greatly, Return to Love, and the Untethered Soul.
I have a Return to Love up there, and I literally just loaned my neighbor next door Daring Greatly yesterday.
Okay, so, and the third book I want to say, the third book is The Untethered Soul, and the fourth book is What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway, about Jonathon Aslay. But what she says in Return to Love is about removing the blocks to love.
Absolutely.
And so this journey of self-love is like an onion. You're just peeling a layer at a time. And so many people want to go straight to the center. And what happens is you start crying when you cut up that onion. But if you peeled it a little bit at a time, you're able to experience life. You'll notice the difference by just peeling away the layers.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the difference. You'll go, God, a year from now, God, wow, I handle things so much better. I'm more loving. So many people want to go right to the center so quickly that they forget that the whole experience is the journey itself.
Yes. I got to quote my last podcast guest because this is such a good quote. Oh my God, when he said this. So Amari Ice, that episode is live so that people can check it out. But Amari said, I'm just going to read it because I have it right here. Love is not a fairy tale. It's more like a video game. And the number one reason anybody is single or will soon be single again is because they're trying to have a level 25 relationship with level 3 skills.
Oh my God.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, I love that.
It's so good. And it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like everybody's like trying to get right to the center of the onion, but it's like, no, all these layers that you bypass, they're important. They have value, right? That process is really valuable.
While you were sharing, I was thinking of I made up a series of Jonathon quotes today. And I can I share one?
Please.
So and this is still a work in progress, but it says, I don't fully love myself. There, I said it. Thankfully, I created a laboratory to remember who I am on the inside. Love.
Beautiful.
And the point was, and I shared earlier about the laboratory as my Facebook, is when I create opportunities for people to attack me, I've created opportunities for me to love on myself, and I didn't realize it. So there I said it.
That's great.
I don't fully love myself, but I'm working on it. And it's a work in progress for all of us. So
that's great. It's like, have you ever heard of rejection therapy?
No.
My podcast listeners will also recognize this. So there's this guy, really quick, he was like, he had this fear of rejection. It was taking over his life, romantically, professionally, everything. He got sick of it. He was like, I need to desensitize myself to rejection.
Okay.
So he set out, I think it was either 30 days or 90 days that he decided he was going to put himself in a position to be rejected every single day. Okay. And as a way to desensitize himself to it. So it's kind of like what you're doing.
It's interesting.
In a way.
So, well, I want to put a twist on that because desensitizing could mean avoiding. And so I'm seeing
he wasn't avoiding it, and neither are you.
No. In other words, he was leaning into it, so it doesn't have the same charge. Hopefully, and I don't know his experience, but my experience, it's more of an opportunity to love on myself and others. So I love that share. I totally love that because it's really about getting to a point where you're going, you know what? It's like that Teflon. It's like my son's post, Mike, don't let anyone fuck with your chi. Mm-hmm. He literally felt that way. He was so in a space of like, if you didn't like me, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm in that space. I'm so happy to be in that space.
Yeah, and I don't like, and I said the words I don't care, but what it means is I'm not going to let it affect me.
Yeah,
that's the piece I mean.
Yeah, I think which one is more accurate for me? I think for me it's probably more I don't care because I don't take it personally. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm like, that's your journey.
Yeah, exactly. So it's part of the 4 agreements, and not that we could do a whole podcast on that.
We used to do like a book podcast. Yeah, I think I don't take things personally like that. I'm just like, okay, I don't know. There are too many people that I do love that I need to focus on. I'm like, I don't have any emotional or mental energy for people who don't like me. I just don't. No space for that.
Well, my work right now is leaning into it. And that's what
good for you. I've done it. Listen, I've been on a reality TV show. Nothing subjects you to more ridicule.
Oh my God.
Okay, than that. So
you're too tall, you're too this, you're too that, you're this and that. I mean, you probably judge for everything.
The case. But that experience helped me because similar to you, where this is like you're using the criticism online as a way to love yourself more. I didn't set out to do that, but that's what wound up happening for me too. Because I was like, people would like write horrible things about me on the internet, and first it was like this up and down. Like somebody would write something good, and I'd be like, yay! Something write something bad, I'd be, and it was up and down. And then one day I had the gift of reading some stranger saying that they hoped that I got cancer and died.
Oh God!
Yeah. And so I read that, and I was like, oh, none of this matters.
Yeah.
It was like a real aha moment. And I can say, if I have cared about what a stranger on the internet has said about me since then, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Even when people say nice things, I appreciate it. I'm like, oh, thank you. Yeah. But I still take it, I'm like, it still doesn't have anything to do with me. It's still there. They're still projecting whatever.
You're never as great as the greatest praise. You're never as worse as the worst, criticism.
Exactly.
But it's really learning how to do that. Yeah. So, wow, that's an interesting share about the reality show. That sucks that happened, but hey,
it's amazing that it happened.
Because you now have that experience to go.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Because I was like, oh, this clearly has nothing to do with me. I've never done anything to this person, right? Yeah. So like that just made me see like, oh, if I'm gonna allow people saying bad things, if I'm gonna allow people saying anything, good or bad, to have such an effect on me, then I'm in for a life of a lot of disempowerment, and that's not what I'm here for.
So I came up with another quote this morning. It says, the minute someone judges you, they become the ambassador for your healing. Thank them energetically for their projection and send them energetic love, for they need it more than you at that moment.
They sure do. They sure do. That's awesome. Well, I have one final question for you. And I mean, you've already really articulated this really well, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Okay. Just give you a chance to maybe say something a little bit differently if you want to. If you had a megaphone that was loud enough for the whole world to hear, and you could send out one message about love, what would that message be?
Oh, I'm on the spot. Well, gosh, please forgive me, everyone, because I'm kind of feel stumped in the moment because there's just so much I want to say, and I want to say it in such an articulate way.
Everything you say is articulate, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm thinking of a quote. Well, gosh, now I'm torn.
No, just go with whatever your first.
God, that's weird. I can't channel right now. I'm like, I'm like a deer in the headlights blocking whatnot. My invitation for everyone is to explore the world within, to explore the world of you. In other words, look in the mirror and explore who you really are. Because I know that, there's the old saying, midlife crisis is when you start questioning, who am I? Why am I here? What's this all for? Those are great questions. Yeah. Okay. Start leaning into that and make that part of your daily life. Mm-hmm. Actually make those things part of your daily life. And I know we all have work and cars and paying insurance and doing all these other things. My invitation is spend a minimum of 15 minutes, but if you can, an hour, investing in getting to know who you really are. Who am I? Why am I here? What's it all for? And see where that journey takes you. And it might be purchasing my book. It might be the other 3 books we mentioned. It could be going down to workshops. It could be working with a coach, whatever it is. Do yourself a favor and invest in you, however that looks. Yes. That's my message.
I love that. It's a beautiful message. Okay. See, you did it. You just needed like...
It's funny, when I'm on the spot, it's one thing, but when I can riff, I can just go.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. This is great. This is awesome. I think this is going to be, I'm really hoping and I'm confident that there is somebody who's listening to this who really needed to hear everything that you just said. So I'm excited about that.
And I hope, and who did we want to hear this? Oh, and we hope Brene Brown's listening too. We just wanted to say hi.
Hi, Brene. I love you.
We love you.
I've recommended your book a million times. Okay. All right, Jonathan.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And there you have it, my conversation with Jonathon Aslay. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to check the show notes for links to Jonathon's social media and to his website, where you can get a free gift from him, and also links to his best-selling book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? And you'll also find in the show notes links to stay in touch with me. Yay, I'd love for you to stay in touch with me. I am at Dear Franny on all social media, pretty easy to remember. And the podcast is at Dear Franny Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Yes, I did this to make my life very, very, very simple. Not that I am so in love with the name Dear Franny, but hey. It's mine, so I'm going with it. Thank you so very much for listening wherever you are in the world. I am so psyched that we're still on the charts all around the world. This makes me very, very happy and very grateful. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review this podcast. You know the deal. You know that it helps podcasts to get those subscriptions and ratings and reviews. So I would very, very much appreciate it if you did. And if you have already, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Take care.